UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres visited Vanuatu as he ended his trip to the Pacific, where he praised government efforts to combat climate change. The Pacific is in the front line of the devastating impacts of climate change, but the Pacific has not contributed to climate change, Guterres said. In a statement, the UN chief said climate change is now an existential threat to the Pacific countries. He called on all decision makers around the world to show enlightened self-interest because it's not only the Pacific that is at stake, it is the whole planet. He stressed that to save the Pacific is to save the whole planet. During his visit, Guterres met with Thales Obed Moses, president of Vanuatu. The Secretary-General also visited UN Women's Port Villa Market House, Markets for Change. The Markets for Change M4C project is a multi-country initiative that aims to ensure marketplaces in rural and urban areas of Fiji, Solomon Islands and Vanuatu are safe, inclusive and non-discriminatory. They are also to promote gender equality and women's empowerment, the UN said. US President Donald Trump will be the first world leader to meet Japan's new emperor and empress when he makes a 4-day visit to the country. The meeting with Emperor Naruhito, who ascended the throne on May the 1st, is one of the highlights of Trump's visit. On the streets, opinions were mixed over the visit, which will also include discussions on trade and military issues. Some were keen for Japan to do its utmost to continue amicable relations with the United States, but others were wary of what Trump may say or do. Junko Takahashi, 68, who was visiting the Imperial Palace in the heart of Tokyo, said the emperor doesn't get involved in politics, so it's a gamble. The former emperor has created a good atmosphere, and she was afraid that Trump might say something inconsiderate that may hinder the economy or start a trade war or cause global turmoil. Japan has been in a festive mode since the abdication of former Emperor Akihito on April 30th, the first in centuries, which enabled Naruhito to ascend and take over as the symbolic monarch, as stipulated by the post-war constitution. Rituals and events have been continuing in the palace since the enthronement ceremony, which was attended by selected guests. Trump's second official visit, this time accompanied by First Lady Melania Trump, was organized by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, who invited Trump to be the first head of state to meet Naruhito, media reports have said. He's also due to play golf again with Abe, as he did the last time, and also attend the last day of a sumo tournament, at which he would present a new trophy made in the United States to the winner. Over the 4 days, Trump and Abe were also to discuss issues ranging from bilateral trade to North Korea. Reuters reported exclusively that Google's parent company Alphabet has suspended some business with Huawei, a major blow to the Chinese tech company that the US government has sought to blacklist around the world. A source close to the matter told Reuters that business requiring the transfer of hardware and software products, except those covered by open source licenses, is suspended, though details of the specific services were still being discussed internally at Google. The suspension means Huawei will immediately lose access to updates to the Android operating system, and the next version of its smartphones outside of China will also lose access to popular applications and services, including the Google Play Store and Gmail. Last week, the Trump administration officially added Huawei to a trade blacklist, immediately enacting restrictions that will make it extremely difficult for the technology giant to do business with U.S. companies. But the U.S. Commerce Department told Reuters that it may soon scale back restrictions on Huawei, saying it's considering temporary licenses for the Chinese company's existing clients. The U.S. believes Huawei's smartphones and network equipment could be used by China to spy on Americans. Huawei has repeatedly denied these allegations. The latest move comes as China strikes a more aggressive tone in its trade war with the United States, and Beijing has suggested a resumption in talks would be meaningless unless Washington changed course. The U.S. accusation that Chinese companies stole its intellectual property IP and technologies is nothing but an ill-intentioned political ploy aimed at tarnishing the image of China, some Chinese experts have said. Professor Zhang Ping, Deputy Executive Dean of the Intellectual Property Institute with Peking University, has been studying Sino-US intellectual property protection over the past 10 years. She said the United States has collected high IP licensing fees from China, but failed to calculate these in its gains from trade with China. In 2016, royalties paid by China to the US reached $7.96 billion, accounting for a quarter of the US total IP royalty. It is China's effective IP protection measures that have led American companies to generate profits. However, the US side has turned a blind eye to it. On June 19, 2018, the White House issued a report named How China's Economic Aggression Threatens the Technologies and Intellectual Property of the United States and the World, and cited another report by saying the theft of trade secrets from China could lead to an annual loss in the United States as high as $600 billion. However, the number in reality refers to a loss caused by the world's total infringement. China's payment for patent licensing and use of foreign technologies increased fourfold in the past decade. In 2018 alone, China spent $35.8 billion in that area, ranking fourth in the world, and it is second only to the United States in terms of payment for domestic use of foreign technologies. Experts said the U.S. allegations of the so-called IPR theft by China is politically motivated, adding that it intends to smear China by completely ignoring the efforts China has made in IP protection. According to the Global Innovation Index released by the World Intellectual Property Organization WIPO in July 2018, China broke into the world's top 20 most innovative economies, with its ranking rising to the 17th place in 2018 from 22nd in 2017. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison expressed his thanks after a miraculous election victory that defied years of unfavourable opinion polls and bruised a Labour opposition that had been widely expected to win. Morrison's Liberal-led Conservative coalition has won or is leading in 76 seats, the number needed to form a majority government, according to the Australian Electoral Commission. Slightly more than three-quarters of the roughly 17 million votes had been counted. A jubilant Morrison hugged community members in Sydney's southern suburbs, from where he was first elected to Parliament in 2007. He drew cheers later that afternoon when he arrived in the stands to watch his team, the Cronulla Sharks, in a rugby league match in his beachside electorate. His opponent, Labour leader Bill Shorten, said he would step down and spend more time with his family. A Philippine environmentalist said developing countries should say no to the transfer of hazardous waste from developed countries, calling for joint efforts to dispose of garbage properly. Eileen G. Lucero, National Coordinator of the Eco Waste Coalition, an environmental organization, made the call after the Philippine government withdrew its diplomats in Canada over a 6-year-old garbage row with the North American country. A Canadian company exported 103 shipping containers of so-called recyclable plastic scraps to the Philippines in batches from 2013 to 2014. But 69 containers were confirmed to consist of household garbage and electronic waste by the Philippines Bureau of Customs. The Philippines accuses Canada of violating the Basel Convention and repeatedly urges the North American country to ship back the garbage. In late April, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte reiterated that he gave Canada the deadline of May 15th to ship back the 69 containers of garbage, but Canada missed the deadline. Eileen G. Lucero said Canada should take responsibility to collect the garbage according to the Basel Convention, an international treaty that was designed to reduce the movements of hazardous waste between countries and specifically to prevent the transfer of hazardous waste from developed to less developed countries. Lucero said the Philippines itself produces 40,000 tons of garbage every day, and it is really depressing on the Philippines side to solve its own garbage problem, let alone to handle the developed country's garbage coming to the country. Afghan mother and government employee Mina Ahmadi was working in her office on April 20th when a loud explosion shattered the windows and sent panic through the building. Instead of ducking for cover, she ran downstairs to find her 2-year-old daughter who was crying amid the commotion at the government-run daycare center. "It was a horrible situation," says Ahmadi as she watches over her child playing more than a month later. "Children, teachers and mothers were screaming and they didn't know what to do and where to escape," she said. Islamic State claimed responsibility for the attack on Afghanistan's Ministry of Communications and Information Technology, which killed and wounded over a dozen people, broke months of relative calm in the capital, and underlined continued security threats, despite efforts to open peace talks with the Taliban. It also caused women like Ahmadi to reconsider the decision to bring their children to work. "For a moment I was thinking what would happen if the terrorists threw hand grenades towards us or if they came to cut our heads off. I was totally shocked," she said, "and couldn't think what to do," says Ahmadi, who started working for the ministry in 2015. She said that some mothers don't bring their children to the daycare anymore, and some of them have even resigned from their jobs already. Providing female government employees with daycare centres has been a successful government initiative, increasing access to employment for thousands of women, including breastfeeding mothers. There are now over 375 daycare centres across the country, providing 6 hours of lodging, food, play and primary education to 10,000 children. The centres first started in 1945, but were all shut down during Taliban rule, when women were prohibited from working with men. The government brought them back in 2002, when they were encouraged to re-enter the workforce and demand for the centres grew. But in recent months, Islamic State fighters and the Taliban have been increasingly targeting government officers and international aid groups where Afghan women work closely with expats and men. For now, Ahmadi has chosen to return to work and keep her child in the centre, but she says she feels uneasy. Talks between the United States and the Taliban, the most sustained effort to end America's longest war, began last year, but progress is slow. The sixth round ended recently in Qatar with some progress on the draft agreement on the withdrawal of foreign troops, a Taliban official said. The United States is seeking a Taliban guarantee that they won't let militants use Afghanistan to stage attacks. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was likely to return to power with an even bigger majority in Parliament after a mammoth general election, exit polls showed, a far better showing than expected in recent weeks. Modi's National Democratic Alliance NDA was projected to win anything between 339 to 365 seats in the 545-member lower house of Parliament, with the Congress party-led opposition alliance at a distant 77 to 108, India Today Access exit polls showed. To rule, a party needs to win 272 seats. Modi's alliance won 336 seats in the 2014 election. The exit poll showed that he not only held to this base in the northern Hindi belt, but also breached the east, where regional groups traditionally held sway. Exit polls, though, have a mixed record in the country, with an electorate of 900 million people, around two-thirds of whom voted in the seven-phase election. They've often gotten the number of seats wrong, but the broad direction has generally been correct, analysts said. Underwater robots showed off their skills and abilities at the World Intelligence Underwater Robots Challenge in Tianjin, China. Teams from universities across China took on entries from the US, Japan and Australia to test their robots' underwater speed, camera abilities and precision work. Ku Tianyu from Ocean University of China told Reuters that the robot was mainly designed for the education of primary and middle school students. He added that kids could assemble their own underwater robots based on their preferences and creativity. Audience members were shown a live feed of robots picking up small hollow boxes, taking them across the pool and dropping them into containers. The chairman of the World Intelligence Underwater Robots Challenge Executive Committee, Wei Jiankang, said the contest would let people understand underwater technology and let them know what role underwater robots could play by participating in this intelligence underwater contest, so that they could promote the development of the industry and gather the industry in Tianjin. The challenge formed part of the World Intelligence Congress, which includes the World Intelligence Driving Challenge and a robot game of football. The underwater contest was won by a team from China's National University of Defense Technology. The Shanghai Wild Animal Park has started soliciting public opinions to choose a name for a 10-month-old baby panda. The female cub, nicknamed Gong Zuzai, baby of princess, was born on July 17, 2018, at the zoo. She is the 14th offspring of Gongzu, princess, who was 21 years old herself. The baby panda weighs 25 kilograms and is in good health. People have been flocking to the zoo to see the cuddly bear in the past months. Our visitors thought she was very cute up in the tree scratching herself. She looks a little shy and refuses to climb down. An ongoing Asian cuisine festival held across China has not only gathered a multitude of international cuisines for gourmets, but also enhanced communication on culture and civilization among countries and regions in the continent. Running parallel to the Conference on Dialogue of Asian Civilizations, CDAC, the week-long festival was celebrated in 4 places of China: Beijing Municipality, cities of Guangzhou, Chengdu, and Hangzhou. Food from Guangzhou, the capital of South China's Guangdong province, known as Yue-style or Cantonese dishes, is one of China's most renowned cuisines. Therefore, visitors of the event can both have a taste of Asia and deeper understanding of local gourmet food. Ishizuka Hideki, Consul General of Japan in Guangzhou, said they were aiming to introduce Japanese cuisine to people while tasting delicious food of Guangzhou at the same time, which is very meaningful for people-to-people exchanges between the countries. Just as a Chinese saying goes, food is what matters to people, he said. A total of 42 activities were held during the city's festival, including exhibitions on cuisine cultures, history and civilization, as well as exchanges between different cultures. It was a great chance for us to taste and feel local lives of other nations, said a tourist surnamed Yang. Meanwhile, Israeli Gourmet was seen exhibiting classic dishes from the Middle East region to visitors on streets of Chengdu, southwest China's Sichuan province, during its Israel Day event on Friday. Kobi Mizrahi, an Israeli chef, said, "Eat it and you will understand that it's a try to another culture." He thought China has opened up on every aspect during the years. It's incredible how they did it in many things. And as for food, they've become very closer among societies and communities, he said. Data shows that more than 2 million people have participated in the 20 events with the Panda Asian Cuisine Festival since it kicked off. Meanwhile, in the Chinese capital, Beijing, folk artists and chefs have worked together to offer vivid scenes and tastes of authentic Beijing to excited visitors at the Beijing Asian Cuisine Festival. Western-style diets, as well as Southeast Asian dishes from Thailand and India, displayed at the event, impress gourmets present with the multicultural integration. An Indian tourist said the festival was a very good chance to taste many kinds of food, which were very tasty. In Hangzhou, another host city of the festival in East China's Zhejiang province, 253 exhibitors from 56 nations and regions were offering a huge selection of cuisines, beverages from around Asia to satisfy everybody's palate. Advanced products and technologies on catering industries like drone food deliverers and unmanned restaurants are also on display to inspire industry insiders. Under the theme Exchanges and Mutual Learning Among Asian Civilizations and a Community with a Shared Future, the week-long CDAC was aimed at seeking and fostering exchanges and mutual learning among Asian civilizations and at building a community with a shared future.